Filmmakers, artists, musicians, UX is one field that is the most accepting of n number of different professions. The accepting quality of UX has given us passionate professionals like Deepika Dutta Kapoor. Deepika has been recognized as a woman disruptor by NASSCOM for her role in evangelizing UX in tech and making it a more accessible profession in Asian countries. In this episode, she shares her journey of switching into UX and the experiences that helped her navigate the UXverse. I am Sweekriti, the host of India's first user and UX research podcast, Core User to UX. Welcome to the podcast, Deepika. It's really great to have you here with your kind of experience and all the things that you've done. I can relate to you because you come from an art background, and I was a filmmaker myself previously, and you were also have been an art director. So like that is very comforting, and now that you have done so much in the UX field, it's great opportunity to have you here. So thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you, Swikriti, for the kind words. I'm
Mhm.
excited to be part of this podcast, Core User to UX series. So excited, and I look forward to a conversation.
Yay! So, my first question is about your story. You graduated from College of Art, which is a very famous art college in Delhi. Like I remember whenever I used to go to Mandi House, there would be art students sketching the environment and things like that. And then you became an art director, and now leading UX at New Gen. So I mean, how did you arrive at UX? What were all those stories, all those decision points? How has your journey been in the field? I would love to start with that.
Sure, sure. Well, I would say the magic is in the journey.
Yes.
And I have been experiencing the varied fragrances of the field, I would say. So I'm absolutely enjoying it. And it has been an unplanned journey, I must say. So, my dad is an engineer and he encouraged me to pursue design. Maybe he saw something which I could not see being too young at that point of time. So, fresh from college, I followed my instincts and just went with the flow. Now, if I look back, I think I grabbed every different opportunity. I prepped myself, learned within the situations and scenarios.
Mm.
I must tell you this, the dynamics, culture, and different, and in fact, the way of working, expectations between organizations is very, very different.
Mhm.
Interestingly, the way of working may differ for an ad agency and a large software organization, but still the core remains similar.
Mm.
The target audience in the former and users in the latter.
Mm.
There are still kind of, you can see some overlapping synergies over there.
Mm.
Something which I deeply believe that one way of working will never work for all setups. Whether it is strategy, your approach towards dealing with clients, people, and designers have to keep on evolving. And that is what you learn in your way, which has been the case with me. As an art director, I was directly working towards the need of a brand and stakeholders, building conceptual campaigns and print ads, which have a limited life, right?
Mm.
While as a UX expert, it is about building products for the user by understanding their needs, doing enough research and user testing before releasing the product in market.
Mm.
In ad agency, you are creating a need in users' mind for the product,
Yeah. Mm.
whether it is a, I would say, a food product, it could be Kellogg's or it could be a chocolate. So you are building that need for the user, making it enough lucrative for them. While over here, in the software industry, you are doing enough research and user testing before releasing the product and market. You are understanding their needs. In advertising, you'll see that you are creating not just the need in the user's mind, but it requires creation of a brand guidelines, a brand itself, while other consumes the brand guidelines and builds a design system. Got it?
Yeah.
So, in fact, one more thing, I just realized that in an ad world, the user engagement is passive in nature. Consumers are viewing the advertisements typically without any direct interaction. In a software product, it requires active user engagement, and the time spent is significantly higher. They are continuously engaging. So it's like if you are building something, there is an advertising which kind of leads to the digital side of the product. Right? So it isn't about right or wrong approach, but it is about there are boundaries, there are carry forward of, and they are kind of interlinked with each other as they move forward.
Yep, absolutely. You brought up some really great points because even when I was switching from
Mm.
filmmaking to user research and UX research, I saw so many similarities. In film, I am helping create a cinematic experience. In fact, I am myself creating a cinematic experience, going into the character's head or taking inspiration from the real world, and then curating a cinematic experience that touches the hearts of the viewers. It's not so emotional in here, like when you're
Mm.
in a corporate world, but that storyboarding, that understanding, and getting those emotions. So these are the nuances that are so similar. And that's the thing. UX is so accepting of so many fields. It kind of becomes very like it's a very magical experience to switch actually. So I'm so glad that you shared your points, how it is different and how it is similar as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. I really feel that this is going to help those people who are thinking of switching and who are, sort of getting interested in this field.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it is kind of linked, as you also said, and you have experienced it yourself. So
Hmm.
it's like advertising leads the path to the products that
Hmm.
you see. You may see a airlines ad.
Hmm.
You may see a product that enables you to book your airlines, right?
Hmm.
So it is a bridge. I would say there is a bridge between both of them.
Hmm. So actually, that would be a great exercise for anyone who is thinking of switching to sort of draw out the similarities and the dissimilarities between UX and the field that they want to switch from, and then see through that lens that how beautiful UX can be, or maybe it even doesn't work for them. So, coming to our next question, uh, you have been a mentor, a UX mentor for years now. What is the one foundational mistake you have made someone make as a new UXer? I'm talking UX in general, including everything research design. And now that
Mhm.
we're on the topic of someone switching from a different field to this field, so maybe you can give examples of a new person who is switching from a creative field into UX and the mistakes that you have seen them make.
Svikriti, first of all, I'm so happy to hear when you said user experience covers all the different areas and you are not bifurcating UX with user research and basically segregating user wireframes that are created and the research is done. It all comes together. Even the experience, a visual experience, the user interface is also part of user experience. So everything from start till end
Yeah.
whatever touches the user is user experience. So
Yeah.
I guess that is a very thoughtful question. You have it. Well, I need to think through, as there are always surprises based on various past learnings of individuals. Yep. So to think of it, I think I can pinpoint at least one area that as designers we need to evolve and move away from getting attached to our design solutions.
Hmm.
Know where to be assertive, and that is okay to let go few things.
Hmm.
For example, let's think about a scenario where there is a product which is being built for movie theater booking.
Hmm.
So in that case, there are a lot of discussions that happen when a product is being built. So what is the most important discussion that would be required, or the most focus area would be that a user comes on the product and is able to not just smoothly book the movie, but he's able to identify the location, the movie, and the timings. These are the three most critical things for the viewer to do on the app. Post that, there are other things which add to it. There could be offers, there could be snacks around it, there could be trailers and other pop-ups or some exciting offers, scratch cards and all, which keep on popping in the app, or those suggestions can come in, the reviews, the ratings, they just add to it,
Hmm.
the experience. So, as designers, I guess when we move into any discussion, whether it is with the customer, with the internal teams, or any review meeting of a designs, we need to be ensure that we are fighting for the $50 feature instead of the 5 cents. So it is about balancing out the negotiations,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And another thing could be when, as designers, we tend to at times become very focused on just the design part, ensuring that our interactions, our wireframes, our design is at top of things, but we are not aware about the business value. So becoming aware about the business side is equally critical, which means that it's okay if you don't understand the business in depth, but being aware and blurring the lines between the businesses, the designers, and between design and research is very important. It's not just about closing your role at just a research level, at just the concept or design creation level, or just wondering about can be grown further.
Hmm.
So instead of segregating it and putting lines around it, it is important that there is some transition that happens. Transition can only happen when these different designers are equally involved with the other roles, other expertise,
Hmm.
that will enable them to understand the complete ecosystem,
Hmm.
and also understand that there is gonna be a value out of what they are designing.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's also about building a solution oriented mindset instead of just coming out of a meeting and feeling bogged down that, okay, this is something, a design or a feature that I proposed is not technically feasible.
Hmm.
It's very natural to feel bad about it, but also understand that why it is coming across. Once you understand the persona of the other person in the room, it will be easy to maneuver your way
Hmm.
into it, and you'll be able to negotiate better. It
Yeah.
could be your customer, it could be stakeholders, it could even be your technology team
Hmm.
where you have to at times push your things. So a
Yeah.
simple rule is instead of fighting for 5 cents, fight for that $50 feature, I would say.
Wow, that's a very good way of putting it down. Because when I'm relating your business goal or business decision point to the things I do, so in my research, so many insights and so many things come out. One user is saying
Mhm.
this, one user is saying that. Now, as a researcher, even I have to prioritize my insights in such a way that all the stakeholders, whether it is the designer or my product manager, is able to digest them. And I was little challenged on this aspect because prioritization was becoming hard for me. And as you said, that it might not be important to understand that business. The thing is that when you are just entering, understanding that business, everything can be so overwhelming that it's actually uh, close to impossible to understand it at one go, especially
Mhm.
when you're entering. So that business goal or the business value thing is, I think, central to everything. And as a new user experience researcher, designer, those things might not be set inside us. So thank you so much for sharing that. Because even in our research, we try to have a very set business goal, business agenda uh,
Hmm.
before the overarching question, in fact, of our research. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yep, yep. So it is just one goal that the entire team
Hmm,
is moving towards.
hmm, hmm,
There have been instances where we have also involved a technology leads as part of our knowledge sharing sessions in which we are talking about these are the outputs of a research
hmm, hmm,
and how it can bring value for the designer when they are ideating,
hmm,
right? So once you start bringing in different people, different expertise,
hmm,
at times more minds do bring a lot of perspective. You
hmm,
need to filter out that information also, but it also enables them to understand where the reason or where we together want the product to reach.
hmm, hmm.
W- what is the most important problem of the user that we all are trying to fix?
Yeah.
What is the solution we all are providing as a team?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I guess making all the different stakeholders aware about first the problem, then the direction of the solution is something important, and it will bring in a lot of value.
You are
Yeah.
bringing up so many relatable points. Like I can see my office setup and all the things playing out in my head, whatever you said happening.
Mhm.
Because knowledge sharing and research repositories are a different universe. It's so mind-boggling. And then all the touch points, like not only tech team, even the marketing team. Being the UXer, you have to be in touch with everyone, every stakeholder, the PM, the tech team, the marketing team, and that vision, like first you get it from someone, and then when you're doing research, it dynamically changes because what you had initially understanding in your head, that might not have been correct. And so that even the exchange of that vision and then arriving at a similar, at the same vision, actually, oh boy, that that is a entire different.
Yep. Yep. So I won't shy away from saying that the ownership to onboard the entire group
Hmm,
about the product and its goal, the vision or the direction where we all are going to move forward based on the research data, it is the responsibility of the UX group, the product owners, to ensure that everybody is onboarded. They are not just working on one small epic or one small user story, but they need to understand that holistic picture so that they know that this small feature that they build, how it's gonna bring value. how it's gonna get attached in the larger system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great
Hmm.
points, Deepika. Thank you so much. Since you were involved in the art side of things, and I even had a conversation with you when you explained to me that in advertising you had those columns, and then when you switch to UX, it switched to pixels, and that nitty
Hmm.
gritty information. So it is very important, especially for a designer. So I believe that you started with the design side of things. I want to know, like, how has been your experience with user research, not only user testing or testing a prototype, but actually understanding your user, your maybe even if there is an experience of working with user researchers, like a different team of
Hmm.
user researchers communicating to UX designers, how successful or how much has it failed you, even in fact? User research or even user experience research is not something so common across all the startups. Maybe MNCs are doing great and their level is absolutely like sky high. But it is such a basic thing that I believe it should be everywhere. But that isn't the case. So maybe you could share your experiences of working with the research team, and where did
Hmm.
it support you as a designer, or where did it fail you as a designer, and why?
Yeah. First of all, I would say I've been fortunate enough that I've worked and I have formed teams, these experienced groups,
Mm,
design studios where UX research, UX strategists, or I would say the product owners, they were never part of a separate team.
mm, mm,
We all were part of one entire group,
mm,
being the experience group.
mm, mm,
Okay. And it is also critical to understand that no data is irrelevant.
mm,
It just adds perspective to an information.
mm,
Though one may decide that to use a partial data from it, or they may have to use the overall, the complete data, and even discard some of it.
mm,
See, that is what research is all about.
mm,
You may use some and you may discard some.
mm, mm,
Bringing in the raw research data
mm, mm,
and then decoding that data.
mm,
Raw research independently may not bring in that much value for the designers. The research output is the input for the designers.
mm, mm,
So that would be the directional path that most of the UX designers crave for.
mm,
So typically what happens, I've seen that there are some amazing researchers who have been in the industry for few years, they have matured and they know that when to pause their research, come back and decode.
mm,
While the world is kind of, especially internet world, is flooded with so much of data,
mm,
and it is very easy for somebody to actually drown themselves in that research and they don't know when to come back, when to pause that research and get lost with so much information. So
mm,
that is where the decoding becomes really, really critical.
mm, mm. Yeah.
The UX designers do value the data that they receive,
Mm,
but it needs to be in a, I would say, in a structured way for them to consume,
mm, mm, absolutely.
because it is a reflection of the current state of the product,
Mm,
and it also provides direction to the future path of the product.
mm, mm,
So instead of breaking or putting the walls, or may having researchers and designers work as different teams or as different groups, they should walk hand in hand.
mm,
The user behaviors, their patterns, expectations, all this information is gathered from research, and all this data actually assess the designers
Mm-hmm.
to provide a focus solution. They may also propose an interaction which will bring value to the product based on these inputs that they receive from the researcher.
Yeah.
In fact, there are proven methods available to how to decode the research data in an organized manner.
Mm. Wow.
So let me share with you an example. So
Mm.
for one of our customers, it was a UK's leading logistic operator.
Mm.
So they came up with a problem to us where they said they are observing increase in employee exits.
Mm.
So what we did, we approached this case a bit differently by not just interviewing our, I would say, customer or their head of their departments
Mm.
or even the employees within the office premises.
Mm.
So one way would be obviously interviewing them, conducting user research,
Mm.
but also we went ahead and tried to gather insights of the
Mm.
sentiments of these employees.
Mm. Mm.
It was via the online reviews that they had submitted, some inputs that were published by employees on social media, or feedback on products like like in on Indeeds, they would submit their reviews,
Mm.
right? Based on that research, the takeaways actually highlighted the business problem,
Mm.
that the onboarding process of employees was pretty lengthy. It would take weeks for them to
Mm.
actually train and be in the system. So
Mm.
see, let's understand that this is a logistic operator organization, and the employees are the ones who are looking for immediate compensation. So
Mm.
if they have to spend weeks on just getting onboarded into the system
Mm.
and they don't get the real value immediately, it would be difficult for them to move on their pay scale as they move forward. Right. And then another area of concern for the organization was that was no limitation on hours. Work life balance was missing of employees. They were working for long hours, which added to the stress of the employees.
Mm. Mm.
There were even, I would say, feedback that was submitted somewhere as part of the social media posts
Mm.
by few of the employees, that they mentioned that they were working in central London and they had to pay the congestion charge from their pockets.
Mm.
They have to drive 6 miles
Mm.
in peak hours, which resulted in the usage of more fuel,
Mm.
while their competitors were doing it very differently. So, long story short, the areas which required rethinking were definitely fixing business problem like policies, building an efficient onboarding system so that they could get on the job as early as possible, cut off time on their working hours, zoning for drivers so that they don't have to travel those long journeys which impacted the fuel cost which they were paying from their own pockets,
Mm.
and somewhere bringing a bit of motivation either through gamification or having those leaderboards built in, pushing for awards which were more area focused than individual focused
Mm. Mm.
for an employee. So all these things actually help you to realize that the problem space, what was initially considered that employees are exiting, is it because lack of compensation or something else? But what was realized was a business problem which required to be fixed.
Yeah.
So it is important at times for us also to educate our customers and even among ourselves We all need to understand that user experience encompasses everything, not just wireframes and visual design, as we spoke,
Mm,
but catering to the internal and external spaces
mm,
that form the experience for the user.
yeah.
Users could be your employees, it could be your external teams, it could be anybody. Every touch point that directly or indirectly touches the user,
Mm,
either through technology, through data, through content, the whole experience is what matters.
yeah. Like
Hmm.
just when you think that user understanding is
Hmm.
like about product and everything, then it moves to HR. Like it's equally important
Yes.
to understand like your internal users. Oh my god, that's
Hmm.
why it blows my mind. Understanding, user research, it's amazing.
So that is where each and everything that touches that specific user or the user group is something which, as designers, as researchers, one should definitely explore.
Mm, yeah. And another great thing that you pointed out here was getting to the honest data points. So for me, it's not just the interviews from which I'm getting the data from, but my chatbot where my frustrated users are saying, why is this not working? What is this? That's like the utmost honest data. Maybe in the interview, they can be sweet to me and they want to look good. And similarly, you mentioned the social media posts.
Hmm.
Again, you went on for the most honest and pure data point, which could actually show you the picture. And another interesting thing, this wherever there is a hierarchical approach, uh, I'll give the example of OnlyFans when OnlyFans banned their adult content, and they were so in out of touch with their users that I mean, just because the investors wanted, they banned such a thing, the thing for which it was used the most, because was
Yes.
this hierarchical approach and not they were not in touch with the roots, that is the users. So what this story you shared sounds very similar to that. Wow, again, it's a very great story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because at times we do touch upon user behaviors, we touch upon their patterns, we try to understand their pain areas. But this proven technique of how you analyze the sentiments, the emotions, dig deep into it, the whole psychology part also plays a critical role. So that is where it is important for you, not just UX designers, but also for researchers to a bit detach themselves, not j- and not just focus on one input, but what is the general sentiment that they are getting out of all the reviews, all the feedbacks. At times there are a lot of in between the words, the gestures, the body language that you need to understand of the people you might be interviewing, and then just fix that small point.
Yeah,
And that becomes the center of your whole solution as you move forward.
absolutely. So coming back to your decoding point, what the example you gave, whatever insights that you shared, what was the process of decoding them? In the sense, was it a chain? Like I went through the social media post as a researcher, then I gave it to the designer, or and then it went forward. Or was it like working in a cluster where both the people are involved, or was it entirely something different? Because this decoding thing is the first time I'm hearing, and it is making a lot of sense. And at the same time, I've never thought about it.
So, see, there are different stages. At times, user researcher needs to go back in isolation,
Hmm.
listen to the recordings, reread the notes that they have made, go through the review points that they have highlighted from social media. They would have pulled it somewhere in their documents or any of their format or diary. Uh, so there is a processing time
Hmm.
that as a researcher you need to do,
Hmm.
right? But then there is a cutoff time also. That is what you learn over
Hmm.
the time,
Hmm.
right? Because what happens, thinking too much about what the users may say, you may start translating it in your own language
Hmm.
as a researcher, and you may start bringing in your perspective.
Hmm.
While as a researcher, it is important for you not to get bias just with your experience and start relating those experiences to yourself or some of your experiences. So it's a fine line. It's a fine line difference that you need to build. And that is where I say data becomes really, really important. You need to go back, look at the data, uh, read through it, and then start, I would say, picking those critical points which becomes really important for
Hmm.
you as a researcher. So that is what synthesizing means. That is what decoding means. You
Hmm.
start identifying those different phrases that a person might have said, different frustration ways they would have actually mentioned
Hmm.
in their interviews. You start consolidating them together, and then you spend some time, go through it, and look at those behavioral angles of it. So there are many processes. That then there are tools also which enable you. Sentiment analysis, I think, is one of the very great tools which can be used for some of these unknown areas
Hmm.
of the user.
Hmm.
Like for some journey or a workflow, okay, the user's cursor is going into 5 different directions. He's not able to find a button that he's looking for, or
Hmm.
he's not able to find from where he can change the location.
Hmm.
So that is one level of input that you can gather,
Hmm. Hmm.
while you have to look at the problem in the existing product. But
Yeah.
if you are looking for reimagining the whole experience, then it has to move very differently. The approach has to be totally different in that case, because people cannot say what they want because they haven't seen a new experience. They don't know what they are expecting. So that is where, in scenarios, in few of the scenarios, you may be required to work closely with the UX designer,
Hmm.
build a concept, and then take it forward. So
Hmm.
that is where your decoding may happen, where you start designing something, you start creating something, start scribbling something, and you'll realize, okay, this was something we were talking about. So it is important to also ideate in a group, do that brainstorming session,
Hmm.
the ability to listen to the other person and not saying my idea, my perspective remains at top, what I have understood,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? So that is where perspectives make a lot of difference in
Hmm.
design. The more you ideate, the more ideas you are able to gather will slowly, gradually help you filter out to the right solution.
Hmm.
And you'll be surprised, you'll take it to user testing and you'll realize, oh my God, that is not the right solution.
Yeah.
So I guess that is where the iterative nature of design, we all need to accept this fact.
Yeah. I am loving the aha moments I'm having in this session, in this interview. Absolutely. Like, even the decoding part, it can be done in so many ways. I mean, you can work in a team on that decoding. Maybe you are doing a focus group and you've done it as a team. You can do it as a team. Then you can also do it individually, retrospectively. So it's like hit and
Hmm.
try. As you said, the iterative nature. You have to iterate, or you have to do that hit and trial process to see what is working the best for you in that scenario. And That is why, things like design systems or design processes or UX processes, like rigid processes,
Mm-hmm.
it sort of doesn't resonate with me, because all the things that you are sharing and we're discussing here, it it's so much hit and trial and it's so dynamic. I mean, it's just hard to even think about sticking to a mm, rigid steps. Like systems and processes can be, a little more fixed and organized, but those little steps can be so variating, so varying
Mm-hmm.
actually. So thank you so much for sharing this. Again, another great point, that decoding point. Thank you so much.
I'm
Uh,
glad if it is helping.
yeah, absolutely. It's I can just, play back all the things that happen at work and like, yeah, this happens, yeah, this happens. Oh, that's why this
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. So I really hope that it works even better for our listeners. Okay. So I would like to mention our introduction call that we had before we started recording this podcast. And there was one very interesting thing you said there, that at times when we think about the vision for the next 5 years, we create things that wouldn't work now. And I am not surprised that it came from a UXer, because as UXers, it's kind of, we don't have any option but to be in touch with the reality, with the roots. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that you would share an insight like that. But in our current culture, we have emphasized so much on the future that we tend to ignore the present. So, any
Mm-hmm.
anecdotes or experience that you would like to share that led you to this realization that when you're talking about the future, beware, you might end up harming the present. So, what led to this beautiful philosophical insight?
See, as designers, we have a knack to innovate
Hmm.
and disrupt in every given opportunity.
Yeah.
At times, we forget, is our end customer ready for it?
Hmm.
Is the business ready? We may actually get that jazz in a concept because we have been looking at global products, we have been doing a lot of competitor research, and generally also look at some trending solutions around.
Hmm.
But our users are just seeing the product in isolation, especially for enterprise SaaS based products.
Hmm.
Gamification won't bring in value
Hmm.
as much efficiency or fast processing would.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
And at times, actually, technology may not be ready, which designers may not even considered at the time of conceptualizing. If you remember the Google Glass,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
uh, it was way ahead of its time.
Hmm.
Great concept design. I guess it was one of the first exciting, or not literally exciting, but it brought some disruption in the innovation world
Hmm.
altogether, that you could wear Google Glass and just with your voice commands, it would show you some data in front of your eyes. But the problem that impacted the user experience and business was that the battery heat up in device would
Hmm.
just happen in 2 hours,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So, and it directly impacted their business, that now Google Glass isn't, you won't see it as much as you would have expected it when the product was launched. So it was way ahead of its time. The technology wasn't ready to support
Hmm.
what was conceptualized by the designer.
Hmm.
Another example could be maybe of tablet PCs.
Hmm.
So when it was launched, Bill Gates actually predicted, that was somewhere around 2000,
Mm.
And Bill Gates predicted that tablet PCs will be everywhere in 2005.
Mm.
However, he was off by 5 years.
Mm.
Tablet devices started becoming prominent in 2010
Mm.
after iPads only.
Mm.
So, when we start strategizing a product, it's critical to train your audiences by giving them either sneak peeks of the product or uh, giving some initial or in between releases so that by the time you reach your goal with a big bang, they are equally ready to consume it. Let me tell you a very interesting case study or a project, whatever you want to call, that we experienced. It was for one of our customers in Mexico. They were looking at reimagining the sales management system. What we did was we included a hamburger menu in a sales app.
Mm.
Since the product was responsive in nature, it made perfect sense.
Mm.
I believe it was around 2015 where Android had hamburger menus and it was one of the trending interactions
Mm.
that would solve the lifelong issue of space,
Mm.
screen space, where you need to fit in multiple navigational items. We created and we felt, wow, this is great. Just these three lines would make the design responsive also in nature, and you could fit any count of your tabs and navigation under that hamburger menu,
Mm.
right? So we went ahead and we conducted an A B testing where one of the options had hamburger menu and another one had the typical horizontal tabs in the header that you would see.
Mm.
So, to a surprise, 90% of users did not click the hamburger menu.
Mm.
Can you imagine? They scanned the page, they kept moving their cursor and clicked something else on the dashboard, maybe some other widget.
Mm.
Cut to 2022.
Yeah.
Hamburger menu is a common, I would say, feature that you'll see across platforms, right? So, whether hamburger menu is a good interaction or not, that's a separate debate. But uh, we just realize that something what is trending, if your customer is not ready, if your end user hasn't tested it yet,
Mm.
they may not be able to consume it. Though as designers we were seeing it everywhere. As I mentioned, it was on Android had so many apps
Mm.
which had hamburger menu, and now you see it almost whether it is Windows or even Apple products. If it is responsive in nature,
Mm.
hamburger menu is something a way out. Although those three lines have, in some of the cases, have moved to dots, but the concept of hamburger menus were not very evident for
Mm.
that end user.
Yeah. Can you also explain a bit that hamburger menu concept? Because if someone is new and they might not entirely understand this hamburger menu concept, what I believe is that those three lines that we click on it,
Exactly.
it
You
emotes.
click on it, it's on the, typically it is on the left top corner. There are three lines. You click on it and it would show you the list of navigation. And
Yeah.
if you are in a web browser, it would actually, the navigation which is hidden
Mm.
below that menu icon, it would be very much visible on the web browser. So
Yeah.
as you know, responsive design works in columns. So
Yeah.
the minute the device size reduces, it all collapses within that specific icon.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow, such a beautiful story, because this is a classic example where the designers were blinded by this style because they were seeing it anywhere, but they did not understand that a large population is elusive to this concept, and just because we are designers, we are seeing it quite often than our users.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was like just on the face. We could not believe the results, but
Hmm.
definitely that is where your data, your research, your user testing output becomes so critical. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And the other day we were, having a small discussion on whether we should put a button on our card, like we were designing something,
Mhm.
and like whether we should like reflect a shadow on the card to make it feel clickable, or we should give a button. And from this discussion I realized that I'll have to map out the tech savviness of my users to actually break or take this decision in the future. So if I feel
Mm.
that, my users are quite tech savvy and all the whatever quantitative or whatever methods I use, then that button might not be a point of discussion in my future meetings, because I know that, a large part of my users can navigate such a thing. But if it's a population, my user is such a population that is still adjusting to this techie world that it is becoming, then maybe that
Mm.
button becomes a critical point of discussion.
Yes.
Thank you for that insight. And
See, that is the reason why at times processes do become critical.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay. So I would like to know your personal, like Deepika's personal process, or maybe a system in place. It might be flexible to whatever degree on the spectrum of understanding her users and putting that into whatever you are creating or enabling others to create. So, I mean, like, how did you discover your own your own path of understanding your users, unearthing the personas for your product, which is new gen? It is a low code platform, and I believe you are providing different kinds of solutions to different clients. So, like being in such a dynamic uh, environment, what did Deepika do to always make sure that I'm getting the right kind of knowledge about my users and I'm also inculcating it in whatever that is being created under my uh, guidance?
I strongly feel that uh, there has to be a system, there
Hmm.
has to be a process,
Hmm.
right? And processes work as a guiding rule for you to move forward.
Okay.
Whether it is to get a better understanding about your user,
Hmm.
or to understand what may or may not work in your product.
Hmm.
Right? So it is very contextual in sense
Hmm.
that depending on the kind of information that is received,
Hmm. Okay.
approach is built.
Hmm.
I have I haven't actually followed one single process across all the products or through my entire journey.
Hmm.
One size doesn't fit everyone.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it needs to be customized. It needs to be adjusted
Hmm.
for those specific scenarios and situations,
Hmm.
depending on the kind of problem that we are catering to. Is it time focused? Is it impacting the business, impacting the revenues?
Hmm.
How much acceptance do we have
Hmm.
from the end user
Hmm.
on a solution that has already been provided, and is it a showstopper for them,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So, if you ask me, okay, of your mind, Deepika, immediately tell us. Then, as I said, it's not just one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Over the time, I have learned different ways. I bring in that flexibility in myself
Mm-hmm.
and not sticking to the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So, taking a part from somewhere, then building over and above it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what helps me take it forward. It's all about thinking from a solution mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Solution for the user, solution of the process that we may need to change when working towards a specific problem or trying to understand a user. It's not always the case that you have access to the users or you can conduct user interviews, have those focused conversations, or even have interviews with the users, right? When we talk about low code, so let's understand that it was very early in the industry when Newgen started creating low code products.
Mm-hmm.
We recently celebrated a 30th anniversary. So you can imagine the expertise that exists here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complex space
Mm-hmm.
that requires a deep knowledge of the technology
Mm-hmm.
and the business.
Yeah.
Mm. So basically, our products actually help the IT folks to
Mm-hmm.
develop end-to-end applications
Mm-hmm.
rapidly through minimum coding. Okay. I'm just trying to give you a picture. First of all, what low code is all about. Right. Let me do that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'll be able to then explain you a bit better.
Yeah.
Low code actually is something which enables the
Mm-hmm.
users to do very, very minimum level of coding, right? And low code platforms, we see that they are here to stay. They'll be here for long.
Yeah.
So, with the changing technology and the need to build things fast, build systems efficiently, it becomes critical to have these low code platforms,
Yeah.
right? Which not only will assist the user,
Mm-hmm.
but give them flexibility to build a customized platform and workflows. It could be the usage of components that would appear and also planning on how those components should be applied. There would be some specific rules and logics that needs to be applied, whether it is controlling the size or even making the best use of brand guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So low code platforms are actually a buffet which is made available to the user where they can create their own salad. Okay. There are multiple methods to gather user feedback.
Mm-hmm.
At times in NewGen, we also look at a ticketing system to understand the queries that are raised by the users,
Mm-hmm.
because those queries actually gives us visibility in the challenges that they are facing from the product. So in this specific scenario, what we do, we convert those challenges to possible opportunities. Okay. So few of our queries, for example, were focused on looking for an efficient way to build a form, let's say. Though it may sound pretty simple, but when we digged deep, we realized those users were spending a lot of time to create an interface for a form.
Okay.
So, what they were doing, or that is how the system was built in, that they would add an interface, select a control, such as a checkbox or a date picker, configure the control properties one by one. Just imagine if there were 10 controls in a view, it would take them some time before they could see how the complete interface or the form would look like.
Hmm.
And after putting across and configuring these 10 controls, they would realize, oh my God, either the positioning or size isn't what they were looking at,
Hmm.
or maybe it's better to have a drop down in a form instead of a list box.
Yeah.
Now, what they'll do, they need to go back again
Hmm.
and fix all the controls. That is like, just imagine the effort that a user is putting in to do all this.
Hmm.
So, what will it make for them to reduce these rounds of editing?
Hmm.
Real time preview with logics applied
Hmm.
would be definitely a life savior for them.
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
real time, they can see what is the form is being built, how they are saying. It's easier said than done, but very valuable.
Hmm.
So it's about building a efficient system, a platform that is enabling your users to build a form, maybe a loan application used by the end customer, which could be you and I,
Yeah.
right? So what we see, a loan application form by a bank,
Hmm.
it's a simple form, but how it is digitally built
Hmm.
through the Newgen product using low code platform
Hmm.
and is efficiently built, the complete journey can be optimized
Hmm.
is very crucial. So that is what will bring value for the bank,
Hmm.
resulting into a value for the end customer,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So it's a very complex space.
Yeah.
Technology needs to be really, really the heart of the whole product.
Yeah. Yes. So, what I was getting at there, that, you know, those instincts that you develop after working for in a field for so many years, because at times there is time pressure, at times all the time actually, and then you might not have the right kind of environment for those hit and trial methods. But again, it's so complex that maybe your instinct has become to like gauge the situation quickly, and then maybe apply the most appropriate approach that you feel from your experience will fit the best here. And it was really great how step by step you explained that form thing, which was very simple, but I mean, such small things, like only people who create it can understand the efforts
Mhm.
that go behind that. And this was just one example. You have so many varying things that come to you that, oh boy, it, yeah, it must be challenging and exciting at the same time. So yeah,
Yep, very much. I somehow felt the need. I wish we were together in a room and we had a whiteboard with us. It would have been so easy to
yeah,
kind of talk through it. As designers, I really feel that a whiteboard marker or a pen or pencil paper is kind of go to place to do all our ideations, to explain or something, whatever.
yeah,
It just feels incomplete at times without it.
yeah,
You just want to jump to a whiteboard.
yeah, absolutely. Um,
Yeah.
Now coming to your story again, you have been recognized by NASSCOM as one of the women disruptors in tech, which is a huge thing, because anyway, in the tech scenario, is we know that what is the representation of women in tech. Um, and again, this year's Women's Day theme was Break the Bias. So, any anecdotes or stories you'd like to share that got you to this
Mhm.
movement of becoming a NASSCOM woman disruptor, because oh boy, it sounds so like adventurous woman disruptor. I would like to know your
You make me feel different now all of a sudden. I'm not sure if I did something at
story.
such a large scale.
I mean, that's what it is. Like, it is what it is.
So, I would say I just did my bit. I attempted to place India in the global design map
Mm,
by few of the initiatives, by bringing in the first dribble design event to Delhi NCR.
mm,
Basically, the culture of meetups and communities, especially design communities that we see now,
mm.
was not there earlier, especially in North India.
Yeah.
It was very internal at org level. There used to be those design workshops and connects that used to happen within your own organization, considering it being a very I would say a shielded space where just group of maybe 4 or 5 designers, or depending on the size of the experience group, there could be 30 people to even 300 designers, all of them just doing it within their organization or within their state level organization, right? That is what was happening. So I started realizing that these talks and workshops related to the design thinking were missing from NASSCOM's radar.
Mm, mm,
And that is where I guess we met up with few of the NASSCOM leaders, and we started conducting a lot of conferences around design thinking. Additionally, I also started doing my bit by conducting workshops at not just design universities, but even business schools,
mm, mm,
startup incubators, young entrepreneurs programs,
mm,
growth forums. And I guess what we recently heard is also very great news for us, that now CBSE schools would be using design thinking. They have kind of introduced the design thinking as an elective course.
mm, mm.
So that is a change, and I feel very excited about this change that has happened. Not just, I would say, NASSCOM or these universities and forums and all. There were also opportunity where got to kickstart the design-led engineering training at the Royal University of Phnom Penh, Cambodia. So all this, I think so, is where it just added up, and we saw that now design itself, design meetups are more prominent in the North India also. Earlier, it was more towards the south of India, but now it is. I would say not just in India, but internationally also, how India is being considered in design, the
Mm.
whole perspective has changed,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so it's all about, I would say, doing your bit, keep moving, and doing what is right for the community.
Mm. Wow. That sounds amazing. Because even through this podcast, as I mentioned before, that
Mm-hmm.
I want to spread the word and the importance of user understanding, which as a word sounds so obvious. Like obviously you have to find the product market fit. Obviously you have to understand the users. But there is a reason that so many things on an organization level fail. And that is because we are not giving the right attention to user understanding and user experience processes. So now that you're spreading the word and you are embedding that importance in a in like India, and then also spreading the word all world all across. Thank you so much for doing that, because it is needed absolutely.
we designers bloom and blossom, I would say, in the complete osmosis. We
Mm.
really need that. Without it, we are just working and we are just thinking in one direction.
Yeah.
We need those perspective, we need those that 360 view, we need people to challenge us, question our ideas, and also add to those ideas.
Yeah.
So as a society we are in that transformational journey,
Mm.
right? And as you said, the theme for this year being break the bias, so we are in that journey already, right? So we all understand that change isn't easy, and I have been fortunate enough, I've been treated at par on merit and not based on gender or race.
Mm.
So whether it is in India and or internationally, in both the areas or places, I must say, there has been a lot of acceptance
Mm.
on the merit. So the part where we talk about, okay, you're a women leader in design, I guess that's a afterthought.
Mm.
As women, we should aspire to give in return what we have experienced or what I have experienced. I've been lucky, as I have been mentioning, that I had one of the amazing leaders or the bosses with whom I've worked, some great teams that have aspired me, and that is what I'm trying to give in return.
So, such amazing stories you told, and the way you broke down your journey, your processes of understanding your users, their behaviors, and how differently you have approached it in different scenarios is amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Deepika, because we like I didn't expect that our conversation would go so long. And actually, this has been happening in each episode. And I'm really glad this is happening because this is a very beautiful experience for me. So, thank you so much for your time.
I enjoyed every bit of it, Sukriti.
Mhm.
And I think I just moved into a different zone altogether while talking to you. And I did not realize that it had been a lengthy conversation, but I think we could go for hours and hours.
Yeah,
These are very passionate areas for both of us, I believe.
yeah,
Many examples, many areas that we can keep talking about. There are common problems or scenarios that we all face in
mm,
different organizations. Uh,
yeah,
it's pretty much similar. That is also one of the reason why design community becomes so strong,
yep,
because as designers we
mm,
all face the same situation globally.
mm, mm, mm,
Whoever I have interacted internationally and nationally, there has been those common experiences we all have faced. It's a common journey that we all are traveling, and we'll continue to travel. We'll continue to have those challenges among our design process,
yeah,
and we'll keep on pulling those opportunities out of those challenges.
yeah,
That is what we tend to do, and we enjoy doing that, right?
absolutely.
Lovely talking to you, Srikriti, and it was an amazing conversation. You made me think a lot, but yes, I enjoyed that.
Thank you so much, Deepika, for your kind words.
Thank you. Bye bye.